The vote comes just one day before the opt-out deadline. A recent poll found Brampton residents are in favor of the shops. Plus,
I'm feeling warm. I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks, so I'm pretty much warm.
another cold day across the GTA. We check in with how people are coping with the frigid temperatures. And a fed-up restaurant employee takes matters into his own hands after a rash of robberies. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. We learned within the hour that retail pot shops will be allowed in Brampton. City Council came to the decision after a 3-hour special meeting tonight. The move comes just before the province's deadline, tomorrow at midnight, when all cities must decide if they want brick-and-mortar cannabis stores in their city. Our Taylor Simmons is live at Brampton City Hall tonight getting reaction to this news. Taylor, they are going ahead, but you saw plenty of debate tonight.
Yeah, that's right, Talia. It all just wrapped up about half an hour. Everyone's streaming out behind me. The majority voting in favor of bringing retail pot shops to Brampton. So we saw dozens of residents come in here. About 15 delegates came in to share whether they were for or against. And then we heard councillors debating whether this financially makes sense, whether they should just wait for someone else to do this first and see what happens so then they can make a decision. But we'll show you what happened after that vote came down.
Mr. Mayor, the balance of those motions carry unanimously 11-0.
One more time, repeat its history by making another black day.
So obviously a passionate resident there was getting upset at the news, but a lot more people clapping. There was a bit on both sides here tonight, and this isn't actually the usual council chambers for Brampton. It's a bit of a smaller room, so there was even spillover just around the corner from here, and we talked to a bunch of residents about why they were for or against this move. So here's some of them.
Alcohol and tobacco both killed more people than all world wars combined. Marijuana is not responsible for killing not even one person. So I feel if we were able to accurately legalize and monetize alcohol and tobacco use, then I feel there's no reason why we can't do the same with marijuana.
Having cannabis retail stores in our neighborhoods is not going to be ideal for our children. They're going to be so close to schools, like 100, 150 meters from the schools, and we just feel that we don't need to have them here in Brampton.
Everybody that is pushing for council to opt out, they're all talking about the children and the youth and this and that. I'm sorry, I have dealers every night at the end of my street.
So just some of the opinions we heard there tonight. And again, this vote came just a day before the deadline that the province had set. It's tomorrow at midnight. And if you hadn't made a choice by then, you would have automatically been opted in. So obviously they wanted to get this done this evening at the special meeting. They were also debating things like if this financially made sense for them, if they thought the province or even the federal government put in enough money for policing a retail store. So we talked to Mayor Patrick Brown about why he went in favor of this decision tonight.
I'm proud of our city council. I thought they took all opinions in. We did our research, and I believe the motion put forward by Councillor Santos is the responsible choice for the city of Brampton. We're going to have the police funding to have zero tolerance on drug-impaired driving, and frankly, we did a process that really engaged the community.
So one thing to note, Talia, something that was brought up tonight as well, once you opt in, you're in. You can't get out of this framework. If you had opted out, you had the choice to get in later, but then you lose out on some funding that the provincial government was offering for things like policing, for things like getting extra residents, questions from residents. So in April, we're expecting these shops to open up, 6 in the GTA, 5 in Toronto. So now we'll see if one opens up in Brampton.
Thanks for that, Taylor. Now, Mississauga already said no to cannabis retail stores, but of course that leaves a void for the black market to fill. Today, Peel Police announced they shut down an illegal operation. 4 people were arrested and charged under the Cannabis Control Act for unlawfully selling marijuana. They tweeted this photo of the safe from the business at Hurontario and Dundas. All told, they seized 41 pounds of dried marijuana, several edibles, and $10,000 cash. Toronto was under an extreme cold weather alert for most of today as the city continues to deal with its first real chill of winter. Chris Glover has more on how those who have to work in these conditions are coping.
Minus 30 with the wind chill, lock is frozen.
Atlas Tools and Machinery got creative this morning to thaw out their front door.
So if your trailer's locked, if the front door of your store you can't get into, you can heat it up with this cordless heat gun and make business possible.
Business was possible for carpenter Armand Lepik, just shorter.
Well, today we cut the day a little bit short. I was only out there for a couple of hours.
And what was that like?
Not so bad. When you suit up properly, I could have done a full day today. The boss was the one that decided to cut it off. So.
And yet I find you here looking for heaters.
Yeah, you know, when you stop moving, it does get a bit chilly.
For these chilly days, maybe check out a battery-heated jacket. Here, you want to put it on me?
Yeah, you want to do it? It's a little bit big for you, but
yeah,
I gave you an XL.
Looks like my dad's jacket.
You can zip it up.
So how does it work?
So you're zipped up, so you kind of just press and hold that button there. Now your heat's on.
Yeah, you can really feel it.
Yeah, it really gets nice and toasty.
And it's pretty quick. Over on the Danforth, it's hard to think any jacket could cut the wind 9 meters up. Does it feel colder up there?
It's always a little bit, few degrees colder once you get up here because right away you get the wind chill.
Roofer Tony Britsky and his crew are removing snow from the drains.
It's cold, we just go down for bed and then come back up and then just keep working.
I talked to another roofer today who said that they are not even going up on roofs today. It's just too cold.
Yeah, it's just a matter of dressing for it and, you know, having the knowledge to be able to work safe and know what to do.
So why do you do this? Because the challenge is just amazing. It feels great. You stay in shape for summer.
So she was certainly loving it, but you could tell just from what she was wearing that she was very prepared for this inclement weather as well. Now, when we have extreme cold weather alerts like this, the city puts in place these warming centers like the one that I'm standing outside of. They also have shelters. The mayor said that overnight last night, those were operating at around 96%. So they still have space to accept more people. Still tomorrow, housing advocates will be pushing the mayor to declare homelessness a state of emergency in the city of Toronto. That's something that he has so far not done. And the good news for a lot of people in our city tonight, it is not expected to last much longer. The cold weather should only be with us for one more night. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a first look at our forecast, and I can really feel that tonight is the final stretch of this deep freeze.
Yeah, we do have another cold night ahead, Talia. There's one little saving grace, I'd say, in here, and that's that the winds have eased up a little bit. So through the overnight hours, the wind chills won't be as significant, but still very cold air that we have in place as high pressures over top of us. The clear skies there denote that. And what happens tomorrow is we start the day off with generally a little bit of sunshine, but these clouds are going to build in pretty quickly. You can see to the north of us some mixed precipitation possible. The winds are going to shift to the southeast as that next system is approaching. We really just stick with that mix of sun and cloud into the afternoon hours, but tomorrow night into Wednesday, there's much more to talk about, including some mixed precipitation. I'm going to get to that a little later in the show as we look at the longer range, but you can at least get a clue to it here as we go well into Tuesday evening towards the overnight hours, seeing some of that wet snow or even a bit of freezing rain or sleet before those temperatures begin to rise. They will be rising, but not tonight. Minus 19. The wind's not too strong, so feeling like minus 25. Then becoming a mix of sun and cloud. A few flurries possible. Minus 5, that's in the afternoon, but not the high for the day because the temperature will keep rising tomorrow evening. I'll have more on that just a little bit later.
I don't think many people have been so excited for minus 5 before.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that odd, right?
Yeah, it'll be a nice relief.
Yeah, wait till you see where it's going.
I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
10 people were taken to hospital tonight with minor injuries after a collision involving a TTC bus at Lawrence East Station. It happened just after 5:30 at the height of rush hour. Toronto paramedics say the injured were transported to a local hospital. An investigation is underway to determine what led to the collision. Premier Doug Ford is warning that the Canadian economy could be pushed into a recession because of the federal government's carbon tax. It's the latest criticism of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's carbon pricing policy from the Premier. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
It's not a coincidence that Premier Doug Ford chose the Economic Club of Canada to deliver a message about what he thinks the carbon tax will do to the economy. He had a very big audience for this. 1,000 people bought tickets to this event, many of them from the business community, and they heard Premier Ford say that the carbon tax will be an economic disaster.
There couldn't be a worse time to impose a massive job-killing tax on Ontario families and small businesses. A tax that is set to go higher with each passing year. I'm here today to ring the warning bell that the risk of a carbon tax recession is very, very real.
Now, this is a new line of attack from Doug Ford on the carbon tax. We've long heard him talk about how it's going to affect people's wallets, but this was the first time that he actually said it's going to trigger a recession. But he doesn't have a lot of economic evidence to back it up. In fact, there aren't any economists out there predicting that the carbon tax is going to trigger a recession. The Bank of Canada, in its most recent monetary policy statement, listed all of the risk factors facing the Canadian economy. The carbon tax was not even mentioned. Ford did not take any questions from reporters afterwards, so we could not find out what his rationalization is for this, or his economic rationalization. I did speak to a couple of Conservative Party strategists who say that this phrase, carbon tax recession, is something you're going to hear more of from Doug Ford in the run-up to the federal election campaign. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
The president of one of Canada's largest unions came out swinging against Doug Ford today. OPSEU President Warren Smokey Thomas used newly released poll results as proof that the Premier's reputation is sinking.
According to the poll results, Ontarians think that Ford and his PC government are the biggest problem facing Ontario. It's ironic, with his environmental track record, that Ford is the natural disaster Ontarians fear the most.
The Nanos poll was conducted for a week in December. 1,000 people were polled by phone and online. Ford was tied with the deficit as the biggest problem Ontario faces, more than climate change, wages and jobs, and the economy combined. The majority of those surveyed said the best way to reduce the deficit in Ontario was to raise taxes. 90% of those surveys said cuts to public service would affect them personally, and 70% said they are worried about those cuts.
Is it savvy marketing or an offensive use of a cultural term? I'm Farah Morali. Coming up, I'll have more on an ad by TD Canada Trust that's stirring up a lot of heated discussion in the South Asian community.
Police have arrested a third suspect in the daylight shooting in the beach earlier this month. A 23-year-old man is facing 9 charges, including attempted murder. He was arrested on Friday in Barrie on an unrelated matter. 2 men were injured in the shooting at Kingston and Woodbine on January 6th. This will be the 3rd man who has been charged in that shooting. Well, is it a savvy marketing technique or just offensive? That's the question swirling around a series of ads by TD Canada Trust. The word Desi is used by the bank to describe members of the South Asian community. As Farah Morale reports, some say the bank went too far.
You might have heard it in Bollywood songs or seen it on big posters for festivals. Desi is a word used broadly to describe someone from India, Pakistan, or other South Asian countries. But when it appeared on this online TD Canada Trust ad, it crossed a line for one Toronto man.
When I was reading the news, I found this ad. First, I couldn't believe on my eyes, and it is very offensive for me.
Jatin Patel says it's not what's in the ad that bothers him, it's the use of the word Desi.
Desi word itself is like in India, people use for those who are not very modern, those who comes from countryside.
There's a section of people who would use Desi term to look down upon a different class of people. That they're very Desi.
Patel is not alone. This expert in South Asian marketing agrees TD missed the mark.
Are you South Asian?
I am, yes.
If you call me Desi, perhaps I would have a different vibe with you, but someone who's not South Asian and puts that blanket word of Desi, I'm not sure how comfortable everybody would feel.
We showed the ad to people at Scarborough Town Centre today, and reactions were lukewarm.
I don't find it offensive. Sometimes it is really subjective, right?
A lot of the older folks who are at home, they are more in touch with the word Desi and they understand.
You know, it's not anything offending or anything, but like we call among ourselves like Desis.
So maybe tell me about this ad right here. This cultural marketing expert says the TD ad was actually an example of smart, targeted marketing, and there was nothing wrong with it.
But if you want to really connect with these groups, you would have to connect with them via knowledge of their culture and be able to use lingo or language that they would create an affinity with you.
TD has since pulled the ad. In a statement to CBC News, it said, "Inclusion and diversity are core values at TD, and we continuously make every effort to ensure we respect our customers and colleagues in everything we do." Based on feedback we received from an individual on Thursday, we took the digital ad down that night. With that, a small victory for Patel, and perhaps a bigger lesson for cultural marketing. Farah Morale, CBC News, Toronto.
After a rash of robberies, one restaurant employee decided to take control of the situation, chasing down suspects, leading to a crash. He then took out his phone and captured the aftermath. That story after the break. The owner of a Chinese restaurant in Markham decided to take matters into his own hands after he was robbed at gunpoint early Sunday morning. Not only did he chase the thieves down in his car, he helped police catch one of them. His actions are being applauded by many people in the area who fear that Chinese businesses are being targeted. Greg Ross has the story.
My partner didn't thinking that much. When I asked him, he just said they just want to stop the criminal.
This man, who didn't want to be identified for safety reasons, is one of the co-owners of the Yong He all-day breakfast restaurant. After they were robbed by two men with a gun Sunday morning, his business partner and several staff members chased the thieves. The chase didn't last long, ending in a crash not far from the restaurant. This video, shot by one of the staff members of the restaurant, shows a stolen car with one of the suspects still in it.
Essentially, after the collision occurred, the suspects and the owner were involved in a physical altercation.
Police are still trying to piece together exactly what happened in the moments following the collision. But among the pictures taken from the scene were this one of a bloody windshield scraper. The suspects eventually fled again, this time on foot, but police say they were able to find one of them with the help of the canine unit. He was hiding in a porta potty at a nearby construction site.
It did pose obviously a challenge for our officers in making that arrest because we weren't aware of which suspect would have the firearm, so they have to treat it as potentially an armed and barricaded person. The suspect that we arrested did have to be taken to hospital for injuries as a result of the collision.
The restaurant owner and his staff members were not injured, but police say their decision to take matters into their own hands was risky. But people who live in the area aren't surprised.
Obviously, people in the community are very concerned, and particularly if you own a restaurant.
Richmond Hill City Councillor Godwin Chan held a safety meeting over the weekend. He says several people voiced concerns about what he calls a high number of robberies at Chinese businesses in the area. He says the owners need to work together with police to stop them.
I think that's very important. It's almost like the residential neighborhood watch. Businesses can help watching out for each other, and we as community members can also help them.
Toronto police in North Scarborough confirmed they are also investigating a number of robberies at Chinese-owned businesses, and they aren't ruling out possible links to Sunday morning's robbery at Yong He restaurant. Greg Ross, CBC News, Markham.
Colette's back now with our extended forecast, and you left us on a little bit of a cliffhanger. You said there is another system coming through, so tell us about that.
Yes, I'd be happy to. And the thing with this one is we're not just going to be talking about some snowfall. There will be a little bit in there. Actually, some rainfall. So it gives you an indication those temperatures are going to be coming up. But speaking of snowfall, we can look at the record for this date in history, set back in 1979, just under 9 centimeters of snow there. So as we head through the overnight hours, we have the mostly clear conditions, but clouds then building in tomorrow. Earlier in the day, we see that thickening up into the afternoon, becoming that kind of mix of sun and cloud. The temperature rising through the day will be around -4, -5 in the afternoon, but then the temperatures keep going up towards the evening hours. So the system as it comes in is going to come in as some wet snow. It's certainly going to start out that way. Again, this is overnight Tuesday, so late Tuesday evening, not during the day, late Tuesday evening into Wednesday. Dealing with some wet snow, could see 2 to 5 centimeters more towards the north, but then changing over to maybe a bit of freezing drizzle and a little bit of freezing rain possible before the temperature on Wednesday goes up well enough above the freezing mark that it turns it over to rainfall. So we go from the kind of temperatures we've been seeing and the snowfall into a situation where the temperature will be above seasonal with rain. That's January for you. And then later in the day on Wednesday, that's actually going to clear out of the way. So for overnight tonight, we'll just talk about the temperatures still being cold. At least the wind's not quite as strong, -18 to -19, mostly clear skies as we head into southwestern Ontario. And then the temperature coming up, so a little sooner for southwestern Ontario, -2 to -4, your temperatures with that southeasterly wind getting a little bit gusty tomorrow afternoon. It'll eventually pick up around the GTA. The temperature's very cold though overnight tonight. You saw that -21 for Markham. Tomorrow rising into the afternoon, but these are not the highs for the day. The temperature will keep going up into the evening hours, but that's also Tuesday night into Wednesday when that system comes in, so we could definitely have some messy roadways late Tuesday night, but into Wednesday morning for that rush hour especially. Temperature comes up, turns it over to rainfall. Some breezy conditions. We keep some slightly milder air in place for Thursday, but Thursday night into Friday, the door shuts again, and I'm afraid the colder air, it will return.
You were right to say that it's been a very moody January.
It has been, for sure, and that's how it goes.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Before we go, you wouldn't think that a few Lego pieces or dried out marker lids would have much use. But one Toronto woman has figured out a way to create new educational games out of old toys. Rebecca Saha put out a call on social media to collect unwanted toys, trying to give them a second life. And the idea has already caught the attention of thousands. Here we have something that every parent has certainly stepped on. Why the big box of Lego?
I think of it as a reverse bulk store. The biggest problem with reuse, the obstacle is that everything's just been dispersed. So by bringing it all back together, it gets a second life. This puts together some industrial cast-off trays with dried markers from classrooms and families to teach everything from multiplication. It's a 12 by 12 grid or array and can be used for things like bar graphing.
And that's our show for you tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 11. Good night.